Tonight you slip into the forgotten rhythm of biphasic sleep. Boring history perfect for dozing off inside a thatch-roofed cottage where St. Whitread's bell just miscounted the night. So before you settle in, like the video and subscribe. Only if these slow stories truly help you drift. And tell me your city and the exact hour you're listening. Mapping global insomnia always feels strangely hopeful. Now dim the lights, maybe set a fan to a low hum, and let the first sleep recede behind us. An iron bell hauls you upright. Clang, 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 5 strokes. The missing sixth hangs in the dark like a question you're too cold to formulate. Straw crackles under your elbows. Your breath silvers the air and a slow drip on a pewter plate marks 75 seconds. Your metronome for the scene. You grope for the plague lantern, spark the tallow wick, and orange light blooms against rafters stained black by peat smoke. Historical fact. Before chimneys, English cottages vented through roof slits, so every meal, every prayer, every secret got lightly smoked for free. Bare feet meet a floor so cold it feels medicinal rather than punishing. A gentle prod. Lantern held high, you skirt siblings bundled like loaves, and the hound sprawled in joyous indifference. At the hearth, embers sulk. You blow, they glow. A split oak meets the coals, sap crackling as it surrenders its stories. Outside the shutter, moss-scented drafts fold around the frame. You leave it ajar, a thumb's width, sensing night staring back, then close it before frost rewrites your eyebrows. Back by the fire you ladle kettle-cold water. The shock rattles your pulse once, then settles. Historians still argue whether night watches like this were acts of devotion or just unavoidable logistics of tending livestock and babies. Either way, here you are teetering between sleeps, wondering why the bell skipped. Mint leaves from yesterday's market crumble into the kettle, steam rising in spirals you half recognize. Sleep charms children used to summon sweet lady slumber. Some parents painted those spirals in goose fat on nursery doors to keep nightmares polite. You stare at a rye loaf, so hard it could prop open a gate. Tap it, and it echoes. You smile, small and quiet, at your own persistence. A wry thought surfaces. Modern influencers pay good coin for contrast showers. Your ankles just got the deluxe version for free. Then the bell finally coughs up, stroke 6, clang, tardy and flatter than the others. Relief spreads, but curiosity lingers, light as ash. The drip on the plate replies. Plink, the cottage's patient heartbeat. You rest against the wall, cloak hugging your shoulders, steam cupped between thawing hands. Warmth seeps inward, smoothing the shiver edges off your bones. Flame throws soft gold across wattle walls, haloing tools and herbs. A fox barks once beyond the hedge, then leaves silence intact, as if night pressed a finger to its lips. Another plink blank calls. You bank the log, slide the kettle aside, and pad back to straw that now feels luxurious by comparison. Lavender under your cheek exhales calm. Embers glow through half-closed lids like a distant town at dusk. The plate drip keeps steady time. 45 seconds of hush between one note and the next. The skipped bell stroke nestles into mystery status. It will wait for daylight inquiry. Breath slows, shoulders sink. Second sleep drifts forward like a soft tide. But the bell's hiccup wasn't the night's only secret. Tonight the lantern glow trembles against the wattle walls as you sit, half awake, weighing comfort against duty. The hearth has revived, yet ash still clings to the brick lip like gray lace. You decide chores cannot wait. A single plank complains under your heel. Creak, creak, creak. That sound becomes tonight's metronome, repeating softly every 45 seconds. Insistent yet unobtrusive, you move carefully, letting each creak settle before shifting weight. Inside that rhythm, a hush unfolds, wide enough to breathe slower. First task, Check the fire. You lift the poker, slide fresh oak into the coals. Sap pops, pop, and orange light spills, painting the tools in gentle halos. Historical fact: oak, prized for its slow, even burn, cost nearly double birch in 14th century Devon, so families hid choice logs for midnight tending. You fetch yesterday's porridge pot. A skim of fat clouds the surface like a pale moon on a brown sea. Hunger whispers, but the pot must soak. You carry it toward the door. Cold water waits, skimmed with ice, so thin your knuckles tap through it. Water gulps into the pot, sending cold needles through your wrists. The plank sighs again, on schedule. Creak! Anchor confirmed. Keek! Foua's shutter rattles when the wind noses past the latch. You pause, lantern held high. Nothing stirs outside except thin mist curling around the eaves. You close the latch, more gently this time. Mint kettle still steams faintly. You sip a cooling mouthful. Spearmint now tastes of wood smoke and resolve. Warmth threads along your ribs, untying smaller knots. Second chore, sweep. You take the birch twig besom, edges dark from nightly duty, and straw crunches underfoot as you guide crumbs toward the door. Among them glints something round. You stoop. It's the nun's silver coin, the tithe she pressed on you at the tavern. Strange, it rested under the rye loaf at dusk. How did it migrate to the middle of the floor? You slip it into the lantern's side pouch, meaning to ask daylight for answers. Historians still argue whether sleepwalkers were pitied or feared. Parish rolls list both alms and fines for midnight wanderers. While sweeping, you spot tiny paw prints in the ash by the hearth. Perhaps the ember mice from your dreams scouted reality. Some villages even hired cats, on formal contract, paid a bowl of ale mash weekly to audit such nocturnal accountants. You finish the sweep. Outside, a cow lowing at the byre adds a second auditory beacon at half a count from the floorboard. Two rhythms interlace, soothing in their unplanned duet. You lift the water bucket. Its weight shifts your spine, reminding muscles of last night's plague patrol sprint. You cross to the shutter again, unhook and step outside. Air shocks like plunged steel. Stars still hide. Only you, the lantern, and the distant lowing cow beyond the hedges. River ice cracks faintly near the ford, a distant percussion. At the well, rope rasps your palms as you lower the bucket until the splash echoes up the shaft. You haul. Beads turn to pearls in lantern light. Arms burn, but the ache feels honest. Returning, you notice footprints in the frost beside your own, narrow, barefoot. They lead from the cottage toward pasture, then vanish under churned mud. A child's early chore? The sleepwalker of parish gossip? Mystery thickens like stew. Back indoors, you set the brimming bucket on the bench. Creaky. The plank keeps tempo. The cow answers a half-beat late. Fire adds a soft hiss. The night orchestra complete. You ladle a mug of well water, refreshing despite the chill. Flint clean, awake. Blanket and straw call again, but you reward the hearth with one more log. Flame climbs, coloring rafters a gentle bronze. Before turning in, you lift a charcoal stub from the ash pan and sketch a small spiral on the cleanest beam, a nod to sweet lady slumber. Lavender sachet. May enjoy the company. You refrain from signing initials. Mysterious marks are plentiful tonight. Lantern wick lowered, you retrace your steps. Creak under the final heel. Still on time. Coins safe. Kettle steady. Mint scent fading into peppermint memory. You slip beneath the blanket, pushing toes toward the warm hollow left earlier. Behind closed lids, you picture the cow settling on her knees, cud rhythm matching the plank's tired moan. Inside that imagined barn, you shelve the unanswered bell gap, the barefoot prince, and the migrating coin. Daylight puzzles, not midnight threats. A faint sea salt note drifts through the shutter, reminding you that rivers widen into oceans while villagers mostly stay put. Perspective shrinks worry to pocket size. The hound rolls, paws suspended like prayer flags, its soft woof brushing your calf, a gentle stamp of approval. A sibling coughs from the loft. You count 3 heartbeats, hear your mother's half-sleep murmur, and note the cough fade. Human anchors added to timber and cattle. Mint aftertaste cools your tongue. Ambers warm your heels. Charcoal spiral guards from above. Even the floorboard chooses silence. Joints finally at rest. The cowed hum stretches longer, then subsides. Night's score ends on a velvet note, and you drift into the deepest corridor of second sleep, where lanterns, coins, and bells pause their games until morning. Wow. Moonlight finally creeps between the shutters, silvering the clay walls and tugging you halfway awake. Your eyes adjust, and you notice the lantern's tallow wick has melted into a shimmering bead. Every 45 seconds, a single drop of liquid wax slides down the horn pane and lands on the iron base. Drip, quiet, precise, hypnotic. That wax drip becomes the new metronome for this hour. You sit up, listening. The cottage breathes evenly, siblings murmuring, the hound snoring, the oak settling with slow clicks. But beyond the door, a faint conversation drifts along the frozen lane. Male voices, low and urgent, punctuated by the shuffle of boots. Curiosity, ever meddlesome, nudges you upright. Loke, lantern, caution. You ease the latch and step into air cold enough to sting your eyelashes. Chimneys exhale white ribbons that tangle with moonbeams. A dog barks once in the distance. Woof, then falls silent, as if reminded it might wake saints. Rutted mud has frozen into ridges. Boot soles scrape with every step, but inside the lantern, the wax keeps its rhythm. Drip, drip, measured and loyal. You follow the sound of hushed talk toward the green. 2 men stand near a cart stacked with empty casks. They speak of the missing silver and whether the tavern nun has an accomplice. Your hand moves to the lantern pouch where the coin now rests. Its weight suddenly feels complicated. Historical fact. Ale taxes often traveled as loose coins in the wee hours because collectors trusted darkness more than crowded daylight stalls. Tonight, though, those coins seem intent on rewriting their own maps. One man points toward the bell tower, insisting someone climbed the ladder after matins. His friend counters that the sexton never leaves the rope room unattended. Historians still argue whether rural sextons doubled as night watchmen or preferred their feather beds. Parish records politely contradict each other. You stay hidden behind a stacked timber pile, lantern hooded. Another wax drop slips drip, your private hourglass. A small smile flickers. Clandestine meetings should check for eavesdroppers taller than firewood. Ring turns, carrying chimney smoke flavored with alder. Free aromatherapy, courtesy of medieval zoning laws. You breathe through wool to mute a cough. Frost stinging your nostrils like crushed mint. The men finish loading the casks, maybe ale, maybe something less innocent, onto the cart. A plank bangs against the wagon's side. Thunk, louder than intended. They freeze, scan the lane, then mutter a prayer to avoid waking the reeve. The prayer ends with a coin tossed toward the roadside shrine of St. Cuthbert. It rings on stone, clink, then rolls, stopping inches from your boot. Heart taps ribs. Lantern wax drops again. Drip. You stoop and pocket the coin beside the nun's silver. 2 coins. 2 origins. 1 pocket. Mysteries mating in darkness. The men snap the reins. The cart creaks off toward the marsh path, wheels crunching ice with every rotation. You remain crouched until hoofbeats fade into the hush. Across the green, the owl from earlier perches on a signpost, feathers lit like tarnished pewter. It gives a muted hoo, less omen, more commentary. You'd bow, but your cloak hems have already iced into stiff scrolls. Some Devon hamlets believed owls carried lost dreams in their talons, dropping them back into sleepers who snored politely. You wonder which dream might return tonight. Ember mice, barefoot prints, or maybe the bell's offbeat echo. Drip. The lantern insists you keep count. You decide the cottage offers warmer algebra for unanswered questions. On the walk home, frost crystals refract moonlight in tiny arcs that mimic meteor trails from the night before. Boots crunch, dogs hush, chimneys whisper. The lane feels staged, every sound spaced just right so the wax strip can solo. The night deserves credit as a professional sound engineer. Your door accepts the latch softly. Inside, embers still glow, casting gentle bronze on the charcoal spiral overhead. You hang the lantern, let its wick gutter low, and slide the 2 new coins beneath the lavender sachet. A suspicious nest, yes, but safer than your palm. Straw welcomes tired knees, blanket folds over your shoulders like a patient tutor. Wax finally freezes, the drip ends. Silence fills the gap like warm wool. Eyelids float downward. The hush is full of possible truths. Stolen tithe, restless bell ropes, strange footprints. Yet another secret drifts in from the lane, faint, but you catch it just before sleep closes the door. Hoofbeats heading back from the marsh. Lighter wagon this time. No voices. And the owl? Still watching from the signpost, its silhouette now fused with a slow rising mist. A muffled knock rumbles through the cottage door. 3 polite taps, then a breath-held pause. You unlatch the bar and winter presses in, carrying Goodwife Edith, Reeve Osric, and Miller Wolfstand wrapped in their own exhaled clouds. They stamp snow from boots, shake frost from sleeves, and gravitate to the hearth like filings to a magnet. The oak log flares as Osric adds a billet of birch. Sparks wink up the flue, lighting faces in amber pulses. From the byre next door, a restless cow flicks her tail against a stall board, thwop, every 45 seconds. That tail thump becomes our new metronome, replacing last hour's wax drip. Edith unwraps a cloth bundle, slices of rye-tinged gray-green from flood-soaked fields. She lays them near the embers, hoping to toast away suspicion. Wolfstand snorts. St. Anthony's lace, he mutters, naming the mold peasant's fear for its visions and burning skin. You raise an eyebrow. Historical fact. Ergot blighted rye did trigger outbreaks of convulsive illness across medieval Europe. Some villages blamed witchcraft when bread itself started biting back. Osric pours thin ale into earthen cups. Steam drifts up, malt and hearth smoke. Everyone cradles warmth, and almost on cue, the cow's tail answers, thwap. Conversation sparks. Edith swears the bell missed its first stroke because demons perched on the clapper. Wolfstand counters, rust and lazy sextons cause most hauntings. Historians still argue whether clergy exaggerated demonic explanations to keep parishioners afraid, or whether villagers simply filled gaps with ghosts. You sip ale, let the debate swirl without verdict. Edith turns to you. Any sign of that tithe coin? Heat creeps up your collar. You mention finding it on the floor, but omit the second coin, picked outside. Osric frowns, twirls his cup. Wolf stands the pouch on the lantern hook, but a fresh thwop snaps attention back to the hearth. Wolfstand transfers a rye slice sweet, he growls. One Gloucester folk remedy advised bearing moldy bread at a crossroads under a waxing moon to reset the oven's soul. Edith crosses herself. You imagine crossroads already crowded with condemned loaths. Firelight paints shifting halos onto rafters, illuminating the charcoal spiral you sketched earlier. Edith notices. Leaf charm. You nod. She traces the curve with a soot-smudged finger, whispering thanks to sweet Lady Slumber for mild dreams. Osric scoffs, but doesn't erase it. Ale warms bellies, tongues loosen. Wolfstan recounts a rumor. Initials IC scratched on every ale cask delivered this month. Edith gasps. It matches the letters carved into the plague cross ribbon stake. You exchange glances with Osric. Puzzle pieces glow, but none click. Outside, the cow answers, "Whap," steady as doubt. The hound emerges from straw, nose twitching at toasted rye. Edith breaks a corner, cools it in her palm, offers it. The dog accepts, crunching softly, takes from the rest of the loaf. Moldy green patches now darkened to a harmless-looking brown. Everyone chews. Flavor, dense, sour but edible. Collective relief exhales. The wood pops its approval. Osric sets down his cup, leans in, and lowers his voice. The bell rope, fresh phrase at dawn. No mice this time. Edith's eyes widen. Wolfstan strokes his flour-dusted beard. You imagine rope fibers nicked by blade, not teeth. Who climbs a tower in moonless dark? The cow's tail answers thwap, like a judge's gavel. Edith breaks the tension. Let's pray Compline together. Demons hate company. She leads a soft Latin murmur, the words rising with sparks, weaving into the loft beams. You echo gently. Wolfstan, less pious, adds a plea for sturdy rope and mold-free grain. Osric nods toward the spiral overhead, his own quiet amen. Time folds, cups empty, embers settle. The cow's tail quiets, having defeated whatever fly annoyed her. Metronome fade. Edith tucks the leftover rye into her bundle, promising to soak slices in ale for tomorrow's pudding. Flaws ferment into sweetness, she winks. Osric pulls up his hood, says he'll patrol toward the tower once more. The Wolfstan stretches, bones cracking like green firewood, and shoulders his cloak. The door opens, night leans in, cooler but gentler now that friends have shared its hours. They depart single file, boots crunching frost. You watch until darkness restitches their shapes into headshot. Inside, silence expands, filled only by ember hiss and the occasional roof tick. The hound settles, sighing deep as a leather bellows. You bank the fire, lay fresh rushes near the warm clay walls, and check the lantern pouch. 2 coins, still present, cold, weighty. Candle stub on the mantle gutters. You pinch it out, leaving just ember glow to keep watch. Lavender scent drifts anew as you stir the sachet, mingling with toasted grain and faint ale. You stretch beneath the blanket, shoulders releasing tension socked in since the bell faltered. Last image before eyelids meet. The charcoal spiral glowing faintly above. One thin ember reflecting off soot lines, like starlight trapped in wood. The village sleeps again, braided by 2 coins, 1 spiral, and a question sliced into rope fibers. Sleep courts you with a soft hush, but a whisper tags along. The initials IC scratched on casks, etched on crosses, maybe lingering on the bell rope itself. Answers wait behind dawn's curtain. You let the curtain fall, trusting second sleep to roll. A soft hiss wakes you, snow sliding off the thatch, landing outside with a muffled whoomp every 45 seconds. That snow-shedding rhythm becomes this hour's pulse, replacing the cow's tail thwap from earlier. You lie still beneath the blanket, counting foomp, 45 silent heartbeats. Foop. Each impact feels like the cottage shrugging off another worry. Yet one worry lingers. Those initials, IC, sewn into every rumor. Lanterns remain dim on the peg. Embers glow just enough to sketch amber halos on the wattle. You roll to a sitting position, cloak still draped over your shoulders from the last vigil. Steam ghosts from the rye pudding pot. Edith's recipe already fermenting on the hearth. Its yeasty scent blends with lavender and toasted oak, comforting in a way that invites drowsy investigation. But first, the coins. They glint beneath the sachet, unchanged, apparently innocent. You slide a fingertip across the non-siller. The surface feels colder than the second, wagon side coin. Unease sparks, same metal, different chill. Possible clue, or just superstition raising goosebumps? You rise, barefoot, testing the floor's temperature. Much warmer now. The blaze Osric stoked has been kind. You cross to the shutter, crack it an inch. Moonlight surrendering to pre-dawn paints the farmland in pewter. A fox trots across the lane, tail streaming like a burnt ribbon. It pauses, ears twitch, then continues. Plump. The roof sheds another sheet of snow behind you. Your breath fogs against the shutter gap, curling and disappearing. You close the latch, but not before hearing a faint clack-clack, wood tapping wood, somewhere near the bell tower. Sleepy as you are, curiosity wins again. You pull on boots still warm from the hearth and swing the cloak around with minimal rustle. Lantern wicks trimmed earlier offer a soft, steady glow. The door latch lifts, and the cold tastes like mint over iron as you step outside. Historical fact, the village lanes before sunrise often doubled as barter trails. Neighbors left parcels at doorsteps, trusting communal memory more than formal ledgers. Tonight, though, doorsteps stay bare. Only snow blankets the stones. The clack-clack repeats. 2 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, coming from the churchyard path. Lantern raised, you follow footprints already filling with drifting powder. The roof snow behind you continues its steady fall. Thwomp, a reassuring drum you can trace even when the lane grows darker. You reach the yew-lined path. Branches cradle snow like candle wax cups. There, under the tower's shadow, stand 2 narrow boards lashed into an X, a fresh plague marker. No ribbon, no lime wash, just raw pine and the carved letters IC on the upper beam. Beside it, a wooden mallet lies half buried in snow, with the handle pointing toward the marsh road. Heel prints, small, barefoot, led from the X toward the water meadows. Barefoot in this frost? Either desperation or dream walking. Historians still argue whether medieval sleepwalkers were thought to be touched by saints or stalked by devils. Port rolls record both sanctuary and stoning. Your stomach turns at either option. Lantern light reveals a second detail. Wax droplets dot the snow beside the prints. Someone carried a candle in those unshod hands. Tiny dribbles glint like garnets before melting into white. You crouch and touch one droplet. Soft, still warm. Whoever left it passed minutes ago. Wind stirs the yew needles. Poomp, behind another roof. Unloads. Anchor holds, but your pulse quickens. You always hoped insomnia would bring epiphanies, not a winter treasure hunt. You straighten, glance toward the marsh. Faint glow flickers low against the mist. Someone's lantern, or maybe the candle itself. Decision forks. Follow the prince, or fetch Osric. The reeve might accuse you of meddling while half-clothed. Better to scalp first. You step onto the meadow path. Snow here is thinner. Grass tips pierce the white crust. The glow ahead bobs slowly. Footprints continue, each toe definition crisp in moonlight, definitely child-sized. Halfway across the meadow, you pass the stone cross marking old plague graves. The prints divert around it in a wide arc as if the walker refused to tread on unquiet ground. Lantern flame gutters in a gust. You shield it. Then notice. The prints have stopped by a willow stump near the frozen ditch. A candle nub rests on the stump, still ablaze, though the wind worries the flame. Beside it, a third coin, identical silver, square hold, center, stamped with crude initials IC. The coin stands on edge, balanced upright, as if displayed for witness. Maybe insomnia is auditioning you for village detective with zero pay. You pocket the coin, extinguish the candle, and scan the ditch. No body, no child. The barefoot trail continues onto ice, then vanishes under fresh snow where the ditch broadens into marsh. You kneel and trace a short spiral in the snow, a mimic of your charcoal charm, hoping sweet lady slumber guides whoever roams barefoot. Then you retreat, lantern held low to scour for return tracks. None appear. Back at the X marker, you wedge the mallet under your arm, dismantle the crossed boards, and lean them against the churchyard wall. If disease rumors spark, they should at least wait for daylight and witnesses. Lantern nearly spent, you hurry home. The cottage roof has dropped its final curtain of snow. Thwomp! You slip inside, pulse still drumming an anxious counter-melody to the quiet room. Coins 3 now jingle into the pouch. The mallet joins hearth tools near the poker. You seal the door, double bar, then exhale iced breath into warmer air. The fire needs coaxing. You feed it a fistful of slivers. Flame flares orange, snapping a frozen thread of tension in your chest. Boots off. Blanket reclaims you. Straw sighs approval. Hazel, lavender, and warm rye pudding combine into a scent like summer fields visiting in dreams. Roof shedding has ceased. Silence stretches. Yet you imprint every detail for daylight. Candle wax spots, balanced coin, willow stump. Lids drift downward. Mysteries accumulate. Skipped bells. Frayed ropes. Multiplying coins. Barefoot pilgrim. Second sleep wraps around them, smoothing the edges until questions file themselves under tomorrow. Just before sleep closes its hands, a distant note drifts through shutter cracks. A lull of slow water breaking ice, Christmas, low, rhythmic. Ice on the river settles into a slow, deliberate rhythm. Chris, every 45 seconds, a seam widens and water sighs through. That crackle, sigh, becomes this hour's metronome. Steady enough to measure your breathing, eerie enough to keep your thoughts on a leash. You surface from sleep just as one of those glacial breaths rattles the shutter. Lanterns are guttered, the hearth banked low, the room dim blue with the first haze of dawn. Coins in the pouch click against each other when you shift. A cold reminder that night adventures don't vanish with sunlight. Boots on, cloak over shoulders, you crack the shutter. The eastern rim glows pearl pink, but marsh mist still snakes inland, licking at the lane. Another Chris-hish floats up the valley, water chewing its icy bonds. Curiosity flares again. Who walked the ditch barefoot, and why leave coins like breadcrumbs? You cinch your cloak, grab the mallet you rescued, and step outside. Snow crunches, but a warmer breeze carries hints of thaw. Muddy sweetness beneath frost. Hearth smoke from nearby cottages climbs straight up, no wind to scatter it. Your breath unspools in thin ribbons, pacing the river's icy exhale. Halfway to the ditch, you pass the churchyard. The crossed boards you leaned aside remain untouched. Good. But on the tower ladder, someone has chalked a spiral. palm-sized near the third rung, an echo of your charcoal charm. Whoever scratched it knew the symbol. You file that away and continue downhill. Footprints from last night have blurred. Snow's thin crust hides detail, yet candle wax droplets still gleam ruby in ruts where no cart has crushed them. You stoop and pocket one cooled bead, evidence for later. Approaching the ditch, the river ice cracks, louder. Chrysosh followed by a hollow gloop as slush folds under. Mist parts to reveal the willow stump, and beside it, fresh scuffs in the snow. Toe lines, heel dents, but now larger, adult size. A second set of prints. Lantern light isn't needed. Dawn spills enough silver to read tracks. They arc from the stump toward the water's edge, circle twice, then vanish where the ice has shattered. A dark hole gapes, boot wide, maybe deeper. Your stomach knots. Did someone follow the child and slip through? Yet, no drag marks, no broken branches, no struggle signs, just neat entry, as if whoever stepped in intended it. You kneel, palm hovering over the hole. Cold draps up smelling of peat and iron. Water laps softly. Then the ice answers. Criss anchor throbs beneath your skin. Historical fact, winter baptisms weren't common in medieval England, but penitents occasionally waded into icy streams, believing shock cleansed mortal failings faster than miles of pilgrimage. Maybe last night's barefoot pilgrim had company. A mentor with zeal and no sense of temperature. A flick of movement. On the willow stump sits a folded scrap of vellum weighted by a fourth coin. You lift the coin, same square hole, same crude icy, and unfold the note, ink blotted, letters spare. Clapper twice, rope once, then flee. Iron C. RNC, not icy. But maybe both. You mouth the words. The phrase leaves a metallic taste. Historians still argue whether coded parish notes truly circulated among peasants, or if they're just a later antiquarian fantasy. Parchment was costly, ink costlier, yet here it is. Cheap vellum, rusty ink. Real puzzle. You pocket the note and the coin, then wrap the mallet against the stump to test its weight. Ash wood, solid, but the head bears faint dents, shaped like rope fibers. A saboteur's tool. Suddenly, the belfrays found at dawn feel personal. The river sighs again. Christmas, a reminder to move before the thaw turns the ditch into soup. You retrace steps uphill, sorting clues like cards. Clapper twice, rope once. Instructions? A sexton? A saboteur? And where's the barefoot child? Mist thins. The sun widens into a pale disk. Reeve Osric strides down the lane, cloak billowing, curiosity etched in every footfall. He halts when he sees you holding a mallet and a fist of vellum. You trace summaries, crossed boards, wax trail, river hole, coins now numbering 4. Osric's brow furrows like a plowed field. He flips the coin, sniffing the tarnish. Old mint, he mutters. Pre-plague silver, debased with tin. Discount sins for budget sinners. Osric doesn't laugh. He's counting bell strokes in his head. Decision time. Osric wants to question Brother Athelstan. You want to trace the barefoot prince beyond the marsh. Compromise. Meet at the tower after sunrise. He with the sexton, you with the evidence. Osric claps your shoulder. Heavier than friendly, and marches off. You pocket coin 4, the note, and the wax bead. Then head home for a change of boots and warmer gloves. Lane sounds shift as the village wakes. Shutters unlatch, kettles hammer, goats complain. Yet every ear strains for the bell. When it finally peals, lauds, clang, clang, you count 2 perfect strikes. Pause. Single tug. Exactly what the note described. No rest of the sequence. Who followed whose orders? Fire greets you with a welcoming roar. Your siblings are already ladling rye pudding. You swap boots, tug on thicker mitts, and slip the mallet beside the poker. The hound eyes you, nose twitching at the river-scented cloak. You drop a spoonful of pudding into his bowl. A bribe for silence. Before leaving, you add a fresh mark to the charcoal spiral, 1 extra loop for luck. Then tuck all the coins but the newest into a clay jar under the bed. You keep coin 4 in your belt pouch, the weight of questions you want close. Outside, the sun sharpens edges, frost crystals wink out, the river's crackle softens, ice losing grip, but Chrisish still pulses faintly, enough to shepherd your steps toward the tower. On the path, you notice townsfolk murmuring at chalk spirals sketched on 2 cottage doors. Leaf charms multiply when fear sprouts. Kids trace them giggling. Elders wipe them half-heartedly, unsure whether erasing invites worse. You arrive just as Brother Athelstan and Osric argue at the ladder's foot. Athelstan clutches frayed rope ends. Osric brandishes your mallet like Exhibit A. You add coin 4 and the vellum to the tablet. Faces pale. Hypotheses collide. A rogue ringer staging miracles? A wandering zealot baptizing in ice? Or Iron Sea, stealing silver to melt into counterfeit bell fittings? Perky tidbit, 1390s chronicler blamed a surge in fake pilgrim badges on itinerant blacksmiths called iron carvers. Iron Sea suddenly feels less cryptic. The tower doorway yawns. The rope sways in still air. Somewhere up there, a clapper waits. Twice. Once. Then flee. Your pulse echoes the sequence. Osric waves you up the ladder first, lantern in daylight, just in case. You grin despite dread, nothing like unpaid hero work before breakfast. He chuckles, first crack of humor all morning, and so you climb. Each rung creaks, each creak shirts from the river fades as height steals sound, until only your heartbeat and the bell's cold bronze fill the narrow stair. Halfway up, something glints on a step. Another coin. You kneel, pluck it. Yes? Square hold, shabby silver, stamped IC number 5. You pocket it, murmuring thanks to sweet lady for breadcrumbs, and continue the climb. Not yet ready to guess. How many coins remain? Before the bell truth tolls, the bell tower staircase coils upward in tight cedar steps, each one sighing beneath your boots. Pigeon feathers glide past your face, flutter, and by the time a second feather drifts down, exactly 45 seconds have passed. The bird's restless wing shuffles become this hour's metronome, replacing the river's ice crack. Half-light filters through narrow lancets, striping the stone with silver bars. Your lantern isn't needed, but its faint heat steadies your grip as you climb. Behind you, Osric mutters about counterfeiters and saints that never sleep. Brother Athelstan follows, clutching a vial of oil as if holy grease alone could heal frayed hemp. Halfway up, you pocketed the 5th square hold coin. Its chill still tingles against your palm. You reach a landing and pause. The great bronze bell looms above, suspended from oak beams as thick as ship masts. Rope curls around a lower spindle like a sleeping serpent. Fibers bright where a fresh splice hides last night's cut. You lift the splice to the lantern. Strands glisten with wax the color of dried blood. Candle drippings, likely from the stump you found by the marsh. Osric whistles low, then calls over the stair rail for more light. Athelstan hurries, breaths short, but eyes sharp. Historical fact: medieval bells often carried parish status. Altering their tone could bring heavy fines. even excommunication. The reeve snorts that a saboteur here might face worse. Villagers guard their sleep more fiercely than doctrine. You ease a fingertip over the splice. Wax crumbles. Inside, someone knotted 2 half ropes with a single flimsy hitch. One hard tug during a dawn peal, and the clapper would spin loose, smashing bronze and rope alike. The pigeons flutter, reset the metronome overhead. Athelstan uncorks the oil. He rubs a drop between thumb and forefinger, then massages it into the knot to soften the wax for removal. His lips shape a prayer, but you catch tension in his shoulders. Osric steadies the rope farther down, eyes scanning the tower for more sabotage. On the timber ledge beside the bell rests another folded scrap of vellum, weighed by what you already know is coin number 6. You flip the note open. Same rusty hand writes, "Greater than Belfried, river cleansed, market hears the call. Greater than." One clangs short, keeps sleepers small. Greater than I see. Athelstan reads it, then presses his thumb to the clapper's edge as if measuring destiny. Osric mutters that the market will indeed hear a call, mostly for pitchforks, once these messages go public. A scholarly debate hovers in the air. Historians argue whether midnight cults ever tried controlling village commerce by manipulating church bells, or whether those tales belong to later romantic fiction. The fresh wax, the barefoot prints, and 6 coins suggest myth has found new shoes. You ease out onto the external walkway that circles the tower. Frost coats the rail, sparkling as dawn climbs higher. Mist thins over the marsh, revealing broken ice where the footprints vanished. No movement there now, just gulls dancing on slush. Below, cottages release morning smoke. A market cart creaks in from the south road. You imagine that driver counting on the bell to announce stall fees. If the saboteur cuts one more strand, commerce itself will skip a beat. Wind nudges pigeons from ledges. Their wings scrape stone. Flutter. Anchor steady. One bird wheels up, carrying a square glint in its beak. It drops the object near the belfry hatch before beating away. You hurry back inside. Coin number 7 spins on the plank, then settles with the same crude IC stamped dead center. Pigeons as couriers, it seems. Some 15th century bird keepers taught jackdaws to retrieve silver pennies for ale money. Chroniclers laughed, until village coffers came up oddly full of beak-scratched coins. History might be repeating through feral apprentices. Athelstan finishes unpicking the waxy knot. Rope fibers part with a sticky crack, snap, echo bending around stone like distant thunder. He replaces the weak splice with a sailor's bend, twice tucked, oiled hemp biting cleanly into hemp. Osric lowers the mallet you found by the stump. Its ash head fits the rope pulleys perfectly. He compares dents on the mallet to wear marks on the spindle. The same pattern. Whoever carried coins also toted this hammer up and down the ladder, batting rope until fibers frayed. Motive uncertain, but the method smells of careful rehearsal. You suggest testing the bell. The brothers' brows arch. Osric nods. Athelstan braces. You tug once, feeling new knots hold. Bronze swings, and the belfry vibrates like a giant throat clearing. Clang. Pure. Unbroken. The tones slicing morning hush. No second clang. You dampen the rope. Better not advertise repairs before understanding the plot. You pocket coins 6 and 7, placing them beside number 5. The weight grows noticeable. Mystery accruing interest. Pigeons settle again, flutter unchanged. Shadows of their wings flicker across Athelstan's face as he recites a quiet blessing over the tightened ropes. His voice trembles, equal parts faith and fatigue. Outside, the sun finally touches the bell's bronze. Frost smokes away in thin vapor. Osric grips the railing, gaze scanning lanes for barefoot children, candle wax trails, any sign of the Ice River pilgrim. None appear. The Reeve announces a midday council at the alehouse. Every household must present candles to prove their wax colors, every coop counted for missing hens, every smith checked for counterfeit molds. Athelstan agrees, though notes the day's prayers will be shorter than usual. You descend the spiral stairs, each step creaking, coins jingling faintly. Pigeons coo overhead, flutter. Last anchor as the tower door swings open to bright snow glare. Osric strides toward the market, planning interrogations. Athelstan heads to the sacristy. You linger, palm-warming coin 7, wondering if IC hides among the new chalk spirals on cottage doors. The lane smells of thawing earth and fresh bread from communal ovens. A rooster crows, the note clashing with your private bell memory. You tuck the coins deeper, turn for home, and notice 2 more chalk spirals on the blacksmith's shutters. One large, one small. A pattern? Or children copying adults? Your stride matches the pigeon's wing rhythm echoed in your head. 45 seconds later, another rooster crows in answer. Daylight anchors multiply, yet the night's labyrinth remains. Inside the cottage, embers need stoking and rye pudding has crusted. But first, you place the 3 new coins beside the others. 7 in total, each one colder than the last. You sit, stretching boots toward the fire, replaying the vellum riddle. Clapper twice, rope once. Sequence complete this morning. The next clue likely hides in the market's bustle, or beneath marsh ice still whispering in the sun. The pigeon's wing flutter fades behind thick walls, but you keep the beat in memory, ready for the next secret that dares break it. Mid-morning light spills over the market green like watered honey, soft and deliberate. The first thing you notice is a smith's hammer striking the anvil at measured intervals. Tang, one clear, ringing note every 45 seconds. That steady pulse replaces the pigeon's wing flutter from the tower, giving your senses a new rhythm to hang their hats on. Stalls cluster beneath frost-dusted awnings, vegetables, candles, ale casks, and today, a long trestle table where Reeve Osric stages his impromptu inquest. Villagers queue with uneasy smiles, each clutching a household candle to prove color, scent, and innocence. You ease into line, lantern at your hip, 7 coins cool in your pouch. The smith's hammer keeps the cadence tang, while Osric holds each candle up to the sun. He sniffs for blood. Red wax, the same shade dabbed on the bell rope splice. Athelstan stands beside him, ticking names on a horn-bound ledger, face pale but resolute. Your turn arrives. You present a stub of yellow tallow. Osric turns it, nods. Athelstan scribbles. A breath of relief escapes your ribs, though the hammer's next tang reminds you the mystery hasn't cracked. At the far end of the table, a potter's girl displays shards of broken figurines. Each bears a faint spiral etched on the base, a miniature echo of Sweet Lady's slumber's charm. She swears she found them scattered under the dovecote at dawn. Scholars still argue whether children in the Middle Ages shaped protective symbols into toys, or if collectors in later centuries projected that meaning backward. Either way, the spirals multiply, as though village anxiety has picked up a chalk stick and started doodling on anything that holds still. You drift toward Wolfstan's flower stall. He's recounting how a stranger bought rye with a square-holed coin before daybreak. The man, barefoot despite the cold, claimed the money was iron-blessed. Wolfstan weighed the coin. It felt heavier than silver. He shrugs, wipes flour on his apron, and advises you to keep your boots laced. The historical fact rises in your mind. Long before standardized minting, Regional tokens circulated at face value if folk believed in the issuer's honesty. In a winter of skipped bell strokes and wax-red knots, belief is wobbling like a wheel with a bent spoke. Across the green, Goodwife Edith ladles steaming broth for those waiting in Osric's line. You accept a cup. The broth tastes of marrow and barley, underscored by rosemary. Steam fogs your lashes, and for a moment the hammer's tang muffles behind comfort. Then it rings again, anchoring you to the present. A barefoot child, hair wild, cheeks scarlet, slips between stalls carrying 2 pigeons bound by twine. The birds beat tired wings, scattering feathers that settle on sacks of grain like reluctant snow. You step forward, ask where he found them. He points toward the tower loft, eyes wide, then darts off, before questions can catch up. 2 fresh feathers drift down. One lands on your cloak. You pluck it and tuck it next to coin 7. Mist from the marsh lifts as the sun climbs. Osric finishes the candle inspection and addresses the crowd. Someone, he avoids saying who, has tampered with church property, littered coins and etched spirals to stir awe or fear. Until the culprit is known, no bell will ring longer than a single stroke. Market murmurs ripple outward, hushed but tense. The smith's hammer falls silent. For the first time since sunrise, lane noise feels unanchored, as if the heartbeat of the village has skipped. You realize how deeply that 45-second rhythm had settled into muscle memory. People fidget. Goats bleat. A dog starts an uncertain bark, then stops, unsure of the tempo. You edge behind the smithy, following a notion that coins might gravitate toward ironwork. Inside, the forge roars low, red coals breathing like a giant's lungs. Tools hang in neat rows. But one slot, marked with chalk initials IC, gapes empty. A quirky rumor once claimed itinerant blacksmiths iron-carved coins against plague. The empty peg whispers that such a smith may still haunt these lanes. A new sound rises, slow tapping on wood. Once, twice, pause, then repeats. You circle the forge and find a wooden crate turned on its side. 3 square-holed coins arranged in a triangle atop it. They rest beside a stub of red wax pressed into a crude spiral. Hammerless, yet the ritual continues. You pocket the coins, 8, 9, and 10 now, glancing over your shoulder. No one watches. The market hum has shifted toward the ale stand, where Edith distributes second helpings. You lift the crate. Beneath lies a leather satchel bearing a stitched sigil. Entwined letters I and C, forming an anvil shape. Inside the satchel, a small iron chisel, a flint striker, and a parchment map of the marsh paths, marked with spirals at willow stumps, ditch bridges, and finally, the bell tower. A legend in ragged ink reads, "Greater than ring 2, pause 1, then flee. Greater than, when 10 bright eyes watch, the weight is lifted. 10 coins, the bright eyes, now in your pouch." Out in the green, the smith restarts his work. Tang, tang, but the cadence falters, irregular, as though his focus has slipped. You replace the satchel where you found it. Information is heavier than iron right now. As you return to the crowd, Osric announces that the afternoon council will gather at the alehouse hearth. He wants every household's head present, and any stray spirals erased. Athelstan adds that evening complin will be sung without bells until Lent, a caution wrapped in piety. You catch Edith's eye. She nods toward the tower. Time to share what you've found. But first, one last glance at the smithy. Hammer still meets anvil, yet each blow now lands at odd, restless intervals. denying your ears the comfort of predictable beat. The anchor is gone. In its place, a subtle restlessness settles over the market, as if everyone senses a kettle about to whistle. You tighten your cloak, fingers brushing 10 cold coins, and head for the bell tower, where the riddle began, hoping 10 bright eyes will finally let the weight of unanswered nights lift. The alehouse sits at the edge of the green, half-timber walls holding a day's worth of rumors inside like yeast in warm dough. An iron sign, a tankard swinging from a bracket, makes a soft creaky. Each time the breeze shifts, 45 seconds later, it sighs again, granting this hour its steady pulse. You step through the doorway. Low beams force a respectful bow. Lanterns line the walls, their flames turn down to a dusk-level hush despite the afternoon sun outside. Reeve Osric stands near the hearth, arms crossed, coins spread on a high stool like silver stepping stones. Your 7+3 fresh from the smithy's crate. Good wife Edith and brother Athelstan flank him, candles burning at their elbows, wax pooling in impatient circle. Around trestle tables gather the leading traders. Bolstan, flour-dusted, the potter's girl clutching her spiral shards, and the smith, forearms sooted, eyes red from his anvil's misbeat. Each time the tankard sign squeals creak, talk quiets, as if the metal itself keeps mitts. Osric speaks first. 10 bright eyes, he recites, tapping the coins. Map marks on marsh paths. Someone choreographs. So, he nods for you to show the satchel. You place it on the table, open so all may see the stitched IC envoy and the parchment map. Brother Athelstan traces a spiral at Willow Stump 3 with a shaky finger. These are pilgrim stops, he murmurs, but done in iron, not prayer. Historical fact. The clandestine processions, so-called steel pilgrimages, surfaced in 14th century records when smiths led night rites seeking protection for tools rather than souls. The potter's girl whispers that pigeons stole her clay tokens. She points to a shutter where another bird now perches, cooing. At its feet lies a single square-holed coin. Edith fetches it. Coin 11 joins the array. The tankard's sign swings again. Creak, anchor holds, yet tension climbs. Osric asks the smith why his anvil mark matches the satchel stitches. The smith lifts both hands, palms up, forge calluses cracked. Old apprenticeship brand, he says. Iron Carver Guild. Disbanded after plague famine. His gaze drifts to the coins, puzzled and hurt. Historians still argue whether the iron carvers vanished because lords feared weapon makers, or whether the guild folded under church pressure for minting rival tokens. Debate aside, their symbol clearly survives in hidden pockets. Edith lights a second candle. Rosemary's scent rises above the ale stink. She proposes testing coin edges against the chisel inside the satchel. If they match, proof coils tight around the smith. He nods consent, jaw set in iron of its own. You position coin 11 against the chisel tip. Perfect fit. A sliver of tin filings clings to the blade. Yet the smith's shock rings true. He claims his chisel's been missing since Epiphany. Wolfstan recalls seeing a barefoot boy near the forge that very night. A buzz rises, stalls at the metal sigh, creak, then bursts into layered speculation. Stolen tools, wandering apprentices, saints angry at late tithes. Osric wraps the stool, calls for calm. You count heartbeats, feel the room sink to the sign's swing. Time to share the vellum note. You read aloud, clapper twice, rope once, then flee. Iron C. At Iron C, the smith flinches as if hearing his childhood nickname. He confesses the guild taught bell-tuning tricks. Muffle 2 strokes, ring 1 clean, shift markets by superstition. Merchants once paid well to shorten the fares or lengthen them, all by tweaking peals. Edith folds arms. So our saboteur rewinds an old con? The smith nods, but insists he abandons such schemes. His proof, feet shod, loft coin found by pigeons, and the fact he reported his missing chisel to Osric weeks ago. An entry in the Reeves ledger backs him. Archive scrolls list pigeons hired as message carriers during siege years, paid in hemp seed. Some escaped service, breeding a clever line that still haunts bell lofts for crumbs and trinkets. Athelstan adds that wax on the bell rope matches votive candles he keeps for infant baptisms. Only 3 nests remain, one emptied last night. He suspects the barefoot child snatched a candle, melted it onto rope while elders dozed, and staged coins as breadcrumbs. Tankard sings, Creak Eek, and Osric points his staff at the door. We need that child. Villagers murmur agreements, eyes on the potter's girl who saw him near the dovecote. She describes ragged linen, soot-blackened soles, and spiral carvings on his knuckles. You volunteer to search marsh paths mapped on the satchel. Wolstan offers bread. Edith pushes a clay flask of posset into your hands. The smith gives you a fresh horseshoe nail. Protection by iron, he says, voice rough with regret. Osric nods. Find the boy, bring him to the council before next dusk. Outside, clouds herd sunlight into broken stripes. The tankard's squeal fades behind latched doors. A new anchor emerges, distant geese honking over thawed pond. Honk honk. A twin-note interval that guides your stride toward the marsh. You pass chalk spirals on fences now, multiplying like lichen. Some villagers scrub them off, others redraw thicker. Fear and faith share the same chalk box today. But at this point, the chalk is frozen, a fearful, hidden music. At the lane's end, cattails nod under frost. The geese circle once more, honk honk, then descend beyond willow silhouettes. The air tastes of peat and distant sea, hinting saline under snow. Satchel map shows the next spiral standpipe near a half-collapsed footbridge. You adjust cloak, tighten grip on lantern, and pocket coin 11 beside its 10 brothers. The pouch feels like a small heart thudding against your hip. Step by step, frost crackles under heel. Geese settle, wings rustling. Their calls fall into that 45-second pocket, reliable yet plaintive. You match breath to their rhythm, knowing somewhere ahead, a barefoot pilgrim, or a clever thief, waits with coin 12, and answers. A village cannot sleep without. Bees settle beyond the reeds, shaking feathered coats as if shrugging off the cold. They call again, honk honk, then wait 2 heartbeats before repeating. That twin note, arriving every 45 seconds, becomes your compass through the marsh's pale light. You follow the satchel map along a mud track crusted with half-melted ice. The thaw has woken smells, peat, wet alder, distant sea salt drifting upriver. Lantern raised to waist height, you scan for the next willow stump marked with a spiral. Footprints emerge in soft silt. Small, bare, each toe bold as a seal. They lead away from the track, weaving among hummocks tufted with dying sedge. A fallen alder bridges a narrow runnel where black water seeps beneath thin ice. You test it, wood flexing under weight and cross, boots smearing moss. On the far bank, a trickle of wax beads glints in the lantern glow, spaced like breadcrumb constellations. Still warm at the center, they release a faint scent of bees and rosemary. The sexton's baptism stalk. 50 paces beyond, the willow stump appears, cracked but proud, bark silvered by frost. From its center sprouts a wedge of iron, the missing chisel from the smithy, blade embedded to the hilt. Square-holed coin number 12 rests on the chisel's handle, tilted toward dawn as though inviting discovery. You lift the coin. Its edge bears tiny scratches, someone testing sharpness before stamping. A sudden hush sweeps the reeds, then a new sound breaks it, a slow, rhythmic splash. Flop, pause, flop. Something paddles the creek behind you. When you turn, the barefoot child steps from waist-deep water, candle stub in hand. Linen shirt clings to narrow shoulders. Spiral marks, inked in soot, swirl across both palms. He doesn't flinch at lantern light. Instead, he raises the candle like a relic. Dripping water drums moss in time with the geese. Honk. Breath. Flop. You keep your voice low, asking his name. He whispers, Ikar. A name almost folded into the guild initials, echo of iron and carving. Historical fact. After plague decades, many orphans drifted among trades, apprenticed informally by surviving guilds or absorbed by hospital brotherhoods. Some became charity bell ringers, paid in candles and soup. The boy says a blacksmith taught him the rope song. 2 strokes for mercy, 1 for bargains, silence for sleep. He steps closer, presses the candle into your palm. Beeswax softens against your heat, staining fingers red. Wax ribbons trail down your wrist, lukewarm, harmless. The boy's eyes, pale gray, reflect lantern flame but not fear. He points to the chisel, then to the tower faint on the horizon. Iron sighs, he murmurs. When coins close their eyes. Wind rattles cattails. The geese answer. Anchors steady. You ask why he left coins. He traces spirals in the air. 10 eyes to watch, coin for each. 11 and 12 ensure the bell's tongue never bites too deep. Pen, peep. Logic is fragile, yet the marsh makes odd theology feel normal. Historians still argue whether such child-led rituals ever shaped village economics, or if court records inflated lone pranks into folk panic. Standing here, wax cooling on your skin, the debate feels moot. Practical consequences bloom regardless of footnotes. You examine the embedded chisel. Rust blooms along its spine, but the edge remains keen. With effort, you pry it free. Roots groan. Water beads on iron, then freeze. Corky lore claims iron sealed in willow thwarts nightmares. Perhaps the boy hoped to pacify something larger than bad dreams. He shivers. Dusk's wet chill creeps under linen. You offer cloak corners, guiding him back toward a higher path. Footprints fill with rising water, erasing proof of earlier wanderings. The geese launch from the pond, wings threshing air. Anchor breaks. But a new rhythm forms, the boy's teeth tapping. Tap, 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 measured and steady. Southward, church roof catches wintry sun. Copper cross, blinking. You tell the boy you'll bring him warm soup and easier stories. He nods, but glances once at the stump, as if leaving a guardian behind. 12 coins jingle in pouch, joined by chisel and candle stub, each item colder than the last despite your grip. Crossing the alder log feels trickier with 2. You steady him. His balance surprises, bare toes gripping bark, like a bird's talons. On solid ground he pauses, drawing a spiral in melting snow. When finished, he smooths it away, ritual locked. Back at the lane, the smell of baking barley loaves rides on the breeze. Smoke from cottage roofs curls skyward, no longer choked by fear, merely mourningly busy. You spot Osric striding toward you, cloak flared, Edith at his side with a fleece blanket. Behind them trail villagers carrying candles of every hue, determined to end dawn's unease. At meeting point, Osric scans small feet, candle wax and chisel. His relief softens stern lines. Edith wraps the boy, murmuring comfort about soup thickened with marrow. You place coin 12 atop Osric's palm. He adds it to a cloth purse already heavy with the other 11, bright eyes finally shut. The smith arrives last, breathing hard. He kneels, opens a padded box, and removes a tiny bell, no bigger than an apple, cast in iron, etched with spirals. A master once told him it soothed restless apprentices. Maybe it will soothe one more. He presses the bell into the boy's hand. The child rings it once. Ting, clear, a counter melody to all the deep clangs of dawn. Villagers escort you to an alehouse hearth now glowing with oak embers. Aroma of rosemary broth greets noses. Steam softens tension. Athelstan sets a parchment map on the table, tracing routes that end at hospital ruins in the woods, perhaps where orphans once learned iron rites. Plans form. A small party will visit ruins, cleanse altars, store the chisel in sacristy until Lent's end. Use sip broth, salt and marrow steady shoulders. Coins clink as Osric seals the purse into a chest bound for church treasury. He declares one stroke only tonight, a signal of closure, not fear. The boy, eyes heavy, leans into Edith's side. She hums a lullaby about wood doves nesting in gables. Lantern light dims. Shadows sway, falter, settle. Someone taps the little iron bell again. Ting. A gentle anchor tying the moment to memory. Outside, the geese hush. Wind lifts the sign car barely creak, then stops. Stillness, warm and fragile, spreads through beams and benches. 12 coins sleep together. 10 bright eyes plus 2. Watching nothing but quiet coals. You feel a second sleep rising, even though it's nearly noon. Proof the body obeys its own clocks when village bells fail. 1 spoon of broth. 2 blinks. The world softens. Blanket across shoulders, head tipped back. You let the iron bell's faint echo mark the start of a gentler rhythm. The alehouse hearth settles into a steady cadence. Every 45 seconds, a chunk of oak collapses, sending a sleeve of sparks up the flue. That quiet crackle sigh becomes your afternoon metronome, replacing the bell's distant memory and the geese's twin honks. You find yourself half reclined on a bench near the wall, cloak draped like borrowed dusk over your shoulders. Edith coaxes the barefoot boy, still wrapped in fleece, into slow spoonfuls of broth. His eyelids dip between sips, lashes fluttering as if translating dream fragments into Morse code. The little iron bell rests on the trestle beside him. Its single ring lingers in the room's hush like a held breath. Steam gathers under the rafters, painting phantom clouds that drift beneath soot-blackened beams. Mainstream historical fact is the Tudor alehouses later installed louvered vents to let steam escape, but in your century the vapor simply weaves itself into the thatch, seasoning future winters with today's barley ghosts. Across the hearth, Brother Athelstan copies the parchment map onto clean vellum, smoothing each corner with reverent fingertips. He pauses now and then to blow ink dry, and each exhale syncs perfectly with the log's next crackle sigh. Anchor confirmed, minds unwinding in time. Osric confers with Wulfstan near the door, voices lowered to keep worry from echoing. They debate returning the coins to circulation as alms, or melting them into a single church candlestick. Historians still argue whether melting tainted silver purified its intent, or merely hid inconvenient stories. Their hushed tone suggests neither man trusts old doctrines fully. The smith sets about refiling the chisel edge at a side table, strokes deliberate, steel whispering against stone. He plans to keep the tool locked in a chest until a new apprentice earns trust. You notice he files 1 stroke, pauses, files another, 2 slow beats aligning with the oak log's rhythm, then rests. A smaller, gentler metronome nested inside the larger one. You tip the last of your broth, warmth sliding down like sunset in your chest. A subtle joke surfaces. A half smile rather than a laugh. If insomnia were currency, you'd be first lord of this parish by now. The thought drifts away before it can disturb the sleepy hush. Edith rises, sets the boy's empty cup aside. She asks you to keep watch while she fetches clean linens from the church store. The iron bell remains by your elbow, silent but resonant, as if holding a humble low hearing. You nod, adjusting the cloak around the boy's shoulders when he slumps sideways, breathing the evening out. Outside, winter sun slants through leaded panes, turning motes into slow momentum embers. The oak log yields another crackle sigh. You close your eyes, tracking the sound, letting it guide breath deeper. Second sleep, borrowed hours earlier, invites an afternoon echo. You accept, slipping inside. First comes the corridor from last night's dream, rush-strewn and dim. Candle stubs hover like cautious bees, and the floor tilts toward a bell tower whose rope swings unattended. 2 strokes sound, clang clang, then 1, clang. Sequence complete, yet no alarm rises, only a hush thick as wool. So, how often you think of George? You walk, seeing footprints materialize in front of you. Barefoot, soot spirals on heels. They lead to a door marked with an iron anvil entwined by willow twigs. You push. Hinges moan, revealing a forge lit by river light. The smith stands, younger, hammering coins into bells no larger than walnuts, each stamped IC. They chime softly, and with every chime, a village market appears. Bustling, thriving, then shrinking as the bell tone fades. Quirky tidbit floats through dream memory. Some medieval merchants carried acorn-sized pocket bells to divine lucky trading hours. Ring once, hear your fortune in the echo length. Here, fortunes seem bound to how long sleepers dream. The dream tilts. The boy steps from shadow, takes a miniature bell, drops it through floorboards that now resemble river ice. Bell sinks. Water swallows sound. The forge darkens. The smith looks up, eyes hollowed by realization. Too late to call back drowned luck. A distant crackle sigh, log breaking, pulls you toward waking. Corridor dissolves. Candle bees wink out. Desk ink, oak smoke. Fleece lanolin replace iron smell. Eyes open. Afternoon light has shifted, carving longer stripes across floorboards. The boy still sleeps, head nestled against cloak, small hand curled around the bell's leather strap. A new blanket, Edith's, covers his legs. You see fresh linen stacked by the hearth and realize you slipped only moments, not hours. Ethelstan finishes copying the map, sand dusting ink to set it. The smith stores the chisel in a lockbox. Wolfstan carried from the mill. Osric seals the coin purse with wax from a neutral candle, pale beeswax, no red tint. When he lifts the stamp, a perfect spiral impression catches the light, acknowledgement rather than invitation. The oak log collapses entirely, sparks swirling. Athelstan adds a split birch, resin pops, adjusting the metronome by a heartbeat, now 35 seconds between sighs. Your body notes the change. Breath adapting without fuss. Sleepiness recedes, replaced by calm clarity. Edith returns, nods approval at the boy's steadied breathing. She suggests moving him to the rectory, where spare cots wait and fires burn clean. Osric agrees. Athelstan offers to carry him. You help lift feet, cloak sliding off but bell remaining in grasp, light yet unyielding. As they pass the threshold, winter's sun hits the bell, sending a brief dazzle across the alehouse beams. For an instant, every spiral chalked on shutters outside glows through window glass, bright as comet tails. The boy murmurs something, maybe iron dreams. Hard to tell. You shoulder your cloak and follow the procession into crisp air. Market bustle has gentled. Traders count coins, weigh cheeses, steer goats home. Yet nobody flinches at single bell strokes now. Mystery acknowledged, not feared. The smith locks his box in a cart, promising to bless the forge with rosemary smoke before nightfall. Wolfston offers everyone a heel of barley loaf to sweeten the truth. Athelstan carries the boy up church steps. Edith smooths linen, humming. Behind you the alehouse sign squeals. Kriak, still on duty, still reliable. Anchors endure even when stories spin. You take one last look at the quiet hearth inside, embers dimming, then close the door. Evening chores wait, replenishing water, trimming rushes, banking your own hearth for twilight. But first, a stroll past the smithy, just to see if pigeons returned any bells or coins while you dreamed. Soft twilight settles over the village as you stroll toward the smithy. Snowmelt trickles under the plank walk, glug, steady, unhurried. That gentle water glug repeats every 45 seconds, giving this hour its calm metronome. Lantern unlit, you trust the silver glow still hanging along eaves. Hammer rings no longer echo, forge fires dimmed at sunset. Pigeons cluster on the rafters, feathers puffed, cooing like slow breathing. One bird drops a walnut-sized bell onto the anvil, then flutters off. You pick up the bell. Its surface bears the familiar entwined IC, but the metal feels lighter, almost tin. Mainstream historical fact is, before printed notices, parish bells announced everything. Market opening, curfew, even baker's loaf size. A single altered tone could shift an entire day's rhythm. Holding the tiny bell, you imagine pockets full of such tones, ready to rewrite schedules. You slip the bell into your pouch, joining the 12 coins. Weight shifts, pouch tapping thigh to the creak's glug cadence. Path bends past the dovecote, wings rustle inside. Pigeons churn straw in a restless circle, their coos sinking to the water's sigh. Sound, weaving into a layered lullaby. Cottage comes into view, chimney pouring thin smoke. Inside, siblings arrange rushes, hound sprawled full-length near the hearth. Rye pudding perfumes the air, sweeter now that fermentation's sharpness has mellowed. A new loaf, bought with Wolfstan's barter, cools on a board. Crust crackles. Shirt, adding a dry counterpart to creak music. Anchor confirmed, layered and steady. You unlace boots, warmth greeting toes through woven hose, cloak drapes a peg, lantern rests unlit. You set the pocket bell beside lavender sprig on the mantle, its tiny clapper tilts silently, almost meditative. The water bucket needs refilling. You take the iron pail, step into winter dusk. Creek's edge glows pewter, ice film reforms where sun left minutes ago. Rope lowers pale. Wood squeaks. Water answers. Glug. Metronome intact. Weighted pail travels up, droplets beating into crystal bracelets before sliding off. Back indoors, you ladle water into a kettle, now blackened to gentle shine. Kettle settles on trammel. Flame licks iron. Hiss mingling with loaf's cooling crackle. Sibling hums a tune about daylight saints and nighttime shepherds. Its slow measures coincide with water's low simmer. You slice loaf wedges, smear with honey saved from midsummer trade. The hound edges closer, nose twitching. You lay a thin end crust near paws, grateful eyes close halfway. Conversation swims through the day's puzzle. Coins now sleeping in the church chest, chisel locked, boy dozing in rectory warmth. Yet open questions ripple like the creek. Why 10, then 12 coins? Who taught Icar spiral lore? Historians still argue whether orphan guilds truly practiced bell alchemy, exchanging counterfeit tokens for collective luck, or whether later moralists invented tales to warn against false charity. Debate lingers in libraries. Here, evidence chimed in pigeon beaks. You pour mint tea when water whispers boil. Aroma rises. clears sinuses. Sibling requests story. You recount the marsh, the willow stump, the whispered phrase iron sighs, voice low, pauses long, each breath letting rush. Light shadows dance on plaster. A fringe tidbit drifts up. Some Lombard merchants believed hanging tiny bells in dovecotes ensured steady egg supply. You glance at the mantle bell, wondering if pigeons honor similar fees. Half-smile curves, gentle, teasing, sleep rather than laughter. Tea warms hands, fatigue seeps from calves into the floor. Loaf crackle fades, creek gurgling outside remains a loyal anchor. You bank hearth, log slides, sparks swirl, ash settles. Flame now heartbeat quiet, perfect for the first door of night. Knot stops and opens door. Before bedding, you lift charcoal, darken the spiral above with one new loop. Lavender sachet rests underneath, scent still fresh despite winter dry. You tap the small bell, it replies, ting. Fiery bright, ping, softer echo curling into rafters. Hound tilts ear, approve. Word travels slow among coals and rushes. You sense questions preparing to hibernate until dawn. Council counts them again. Cloak folded, boots lined near the wall. You slip beneath a wool blanket. Straw embraces shoulders. Warm as August memory. Outside, creek's glug calls once more. Bread crust no longer sings. Both sounds fuse into a gentle counterpoint with rising wind sighing through thatch. Breath aligns, inhale to wind, exhale to water. Eyes close. In the hush behind lids, you see marble coins sinking through ink-dark water, each flashing a spiral before vanishing. The tiny bell follows, clapper still. But when it touches water, it blooms concentric rings, spreading until everything calms. Muscles soften, jaw unknots. Sleep's first tide rolls, lifting day's last doubts out to deeper channels. One final glug fades, and a second sleep begins, weaving its slow dreams. This time wrapped in iron, lavender, and mint. You drift up from second sleep as dawn loosens its first silver threads through the shutter slats. Somewhere outside, two roosters trade short, echoing calls. Cuke, 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 cuke. And pause 45 slow heartbeats before repeating. Those twin crows set the tempo for this hour, replacing last night's creek gurgle. Blanket slides away, breath puffs white in the half-lit room. You bank the hearth, persuading red coals to stretch and yawn into flame. Oak resin ignites with a cinnamon scent, lifting the chill from wool and skin. Siblings murmur but stay bundled. The hound only opens one eye, gauging whether breakfast is imminent. Not yet. Stepping outside, you find the lane glazed with fragile ice that snaps like spun sugar underfoot. Mist skims hedgetops, pearled by frost. The roosters answer again. Cucaw, cucaw. Anchor confirmed. The lantern remains unlit. Sunrise already stipples roofs with pink. You carry yesterday's iron chisel and the pocket bell to the rectory. Inside, good wife Edith tucks quilts around the sleeping boy. Icar, she learned, short for Icarus, though he's never seen a sky high enough to fear. His palms, scrubbed clean, reveal only faint spiral shadows. The little bell dangles from a beam, silent but shining. Edith whispers that the council meets in the nave after prime. She hands you oatcake slick with honey to fortify the weight. Sweetness coats your tongue, pairing with the rooster's next call. Mainstream historical fact is the councils like today's. Half secular, half ecclesiastical. Often doubled as quick courts, settling disputes before plows bit spring earth. Failure to appear could cost a tenant a day's work. Or worse, a week's worth of bread. You walk with Edith to the church. Frost pops beneath soles. Roosters conduct their duet. Inside, villagers cluster under arching beams, candles flickering like timid stars. At the altar stands Brother Athelstan beside a squat iron pot, the melting crucible. 12 square-holed coins lie on a linen cloth. One bell perches atop them, and the chisel rests across both as if keeping watch. Reeve Osric lifts his staff for silence. He proposes capping the coins into a single candlestick for the Lady Altar, closing one chapter in solid metal. The smith agrees, vowing to reforge without mingling tin, pure silver, straight from troubled pockets into steady light. You feel the rooster's rhythm even here. Chick, 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 chick. Filtering through leaded windows, stitching community breath to birdsong. Athelstan sprinkles holy water on the coins, droplets sizzling when they hit the hot crucible. Steam rises, smelling faintly of rosemary. Osric reads the boy's brief confession. He wandered after a dream about coins opening bell mouths, stole the chisel to carve marks that would keep sleep inside the night. His teacher, an aging iron carver, died last winter, leaving half-learned rites humming in a child's mind. Historians still argue whether medieval guild secrets truly survived in orphan folklore, or whether later romantics pinned myths on convenient scapegoats. Either way, your village just lived. The footnote. Wolfstan steps forward, offers a loaf baked with first sprouted wheat to mark new beginnings. The potter's girl places 3 spiral shards into the crucible. No longer relics, only sand for flux. Fire accepts each gift, flame flaring gold. The fringe tidbit surfaces in memory. Some Scandinavian parishes cast peace bells from forfeited weapons, claiming the metal remembered violence and chose silence instead. Today's candlestick may do the same. Light made from fear, choosing stillness. The smith labels molten silver into a bell-shaped mold set upright on the altar stone. Metal hisses, settles, glows cherry, then dulls. The mold bears a subtle spiral engraved along its rim. Sweet lady slumbers, symbol recast into steadier service. Osric turns to the congregation. Punishment? Most shake heads. Iker will stay in the rectory until sandal season, learning letters from Athelstan and iron care from the smith. Debt paid in study and shelter. Village law tempered by frost and recent dreams leans toward compassion. Finally, the reckless chanting. You exhale, shoulders dropping. Roosters crow. K-K-K-Caw. Decision echoed by dawn itself. Athelstan lifts the mold once metal cools, revealing a sturdy stem holding a shallow cup. The new night watch candlestick. He seats the mint beeswax taper, the one with no red tint, into fresh silver. Wick catches flame, steady and blue at its heart. Light pools across stone, glinting off soot-dark rafters. The tiny pocket bell beside the crucible rings once, unprompted, perhaps cooling metal contracting, perhaps the room's first easy breath. The sound is bright, brief, and enough to knot everyone's gazes together for a second shared heartbeat. You step outside as prayers close. Breath hangs warm now. Sun climbs, scattering the last shreds of mist. Roosters strut. Chores resume. Yet you notice chalk spirals fading on doorposts. Rain overnight will likely wash them clean. Their job finished. At the smithy, pigeons coo approvingly. One feather alights on your sleeve, soft as acceptance. You place the pocket bell on the dovecote sill. Birds tilt heads, curious, but leave it. Maybe its work continues in subtler ways. The village lane smells of rising dough and thawed earth. Half promise of spring, you carry the chisel to the smith, who stores it under 3 locks. Tools can't choose their use, he says, but hands learn. You nod, pocket empty for the first time in days. Back home, siblings wave from the threshold. The hound races to greet, tail sweeping melted snow. Inside, lavender spirals on the beam, now dark against a brightening day. You decide to leave it. Reminder rather than ward. Loaf sliced, porridge simmered. Morning unfolds ordinary, yet lighter, like frost lace after sun. Roosters crow once more. Ka-ka. But the sound feels celebratory, not urgent. You sip mugwort tea, tasting earth and mint. Lips curve at the quietest of jokes. Insomnia may never pay rent, yet it sometimes renovates the roof. Outside, the hammer rings again, this time keeping the rooster's pace. Village pulse aligned. Another day begins, stitched together by coins melted, candles lit, and a child's sleep reclaimed. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing lavender, oat, and iron. When lids lift, light has shifted just enough to start preparing for midday bread cycle. Rhythm endures, and so do you. One steady breath between crow calls, and climbs to its soft gold peak. And the village wheel begins another quiet revolution. At the smithy, a single measured hammer tap marks time. Tang, one strike every 45 seconds. That bright report becomes this hour's metronome, replacing the rooster's dawn duet. You shoulder a wicker basket holding the new rye loaf, a jug of fresh buttermilk and a handful of juniper sprigs to sweeten cottage air. Frost has melted into ribboned runnels. Each step sends water whispering along cart ruts. When you pass the church, the night watch candlestick glows inside, like a sliver of noon held over from candle dark. Beeswax pools but never drips. Iker sits on the rectory steps beneath Edith's watch, tracing spirals in a wax slate while reciting letters. His bare feet now sport sturdy calfskin clogs, toes snug. He presses 2 fingers to his lips, then to the little iron bell hanging by the lintel, a silent promise to ring it only at lesson's end. You continue toward the communal bake oven on the green. Mainstream historical fact is the village ovens fired once or twice a week. Each family queued, scoring loaves with personal symbols so steward and baker could tally multiple dues. Today the queue is short. Just a cooper's wife with barley rounds, and a shepherd's boy clutching oatcakes. The oven master, face flushed from stoking alder, greets you with a nod. Your loaf bears the sideways S assigned during the night's uncertainties. He approves the deep cut and slides it onto the hot stone. A waft of ferment and roasted grain drifts out, folding into the smith's next hammer note. Tang, scent, and sound twinned. You step aside to wait, leaning against a frost-damp bench. Across the green, Potter's girl rebuilds her dove-wing stall. She has pressed new clay charms, tiny bells without clappers, into rows, each impressed with a gentle spiral. One she gives to you for steady breath. It feels cool, malleable, carrying the promise of kiln impermanence. You tuck it into the basket between juniper sprigs. Wind nudges your cloak, carrying distant thuds of millstones turning grain. Their low rumble underpins the hammer's bright rhythm, creating a layered lull enough to coax eyelids half closed. Villagers speak in softer tones these hours, as if the melted coins taught them to tread lighter in daylight. Wolfstan strides past with flour sacks bound for market, lighter now that tin has been sifted from storage bins. He quips that he sleeps better knowing fewer counterfeiters haunt his ledgers. You smile, half-joke dormant. Peace sometimes tastes like well-seasoned bread. A shepherd leads ewes to riverside pasture, each bell chiming irregularly. The smith's hammer brings them into approximate harmony. Tang, ba, ba, but the pattern lulls. You recall a quirky tidbit scribbled in an herbal margin. Burning dried juniper needles in corners chases sluggish airs and dull coughs. You plan to test it before evening. Bah, basenta. Bread emerges bronzed, crust blistering along the S. Oven master taps the bottom thump, hollow, nods satisfied. He hands it over, wrapped in linen. Steam sneaks through weave, warming fingers. Hammer rings once more, tanker intact as you follow the lane home. Midday light glints on the melted snow, dashing brightness into eyes. You squint, guided by the aroma of baking rye and juniper resin, already imagining hearthside comfort. Inside the cottage, siblings crush roasted barley for supper stew. Hound sprawls belly up, paws twitching to silent dream music. You lay loaf on the board, slice off heels for quick tasting. Crust crackles. Curge. Filling gap between hammer beats. You hang juniper bundles from roof rafters. Smoke dark wood absorbs fresh pine sweetness. Historians still argue whether medieval households preferred juniper, rosemary, or frankincense for winter fumination. Parish accounts bill all three, evidence that scent loyalties shift like politics. Whatever the scholars decide, today, juniper's resin warms the room. Buttermilk foams into cups, tangy and bright. Everyone samples new bread, nodding approval at even crumbs. No ghosts, no visions. Hound secures crumbs, tail thumping time with hammer strokes echoing faintly through walls. Edith singing floats from the lane, verses about saints guiding lost shoes. She steps in, cheeks rosy, bearing news. The iron carver's forge ruins will be cleansed tomorrow at first light, a final gesture to close the guild's long echo. Volunteers sought. You raise a hand before the question ends. Loaf half gone, stew simmering, afternoon edges towards softer colors. You fetch fresh rushes, scatter them underfoot. Juniper smoke mingles with straw scent, layering comfort. Cloak off, sleeves rolled, you and siblings mend netting used to scoop river eels. A task rhythmic, almost meditative. Needle passes through cord, every heartbeat. Outside hammer answers. Tang, still on duty. Sun drops. Hammer falls silent at last. The void feels gentle, earned. You realize how anchors adapt. Creek gurgle, bell clang, geese honk, smith hammer. Each claimed an hour, then ceded to the next. Evening will name its own. You bank hearth early, leaving coals glowing low for twilight hush. Athelstan's night watch candlestick will burn in the church. Your lavender spiral will watch from its beam. Icar will sleep under fleeces warmed by new silver's quiet light. And you, knife laid down, net neatly coiled, will ready your mind and voice for night's closing cadence. A rooster calls once, in confusion. Daybook misread. Then stills. Cattle low, doves clap wings to loft. Somewhere, a distant millstone coasts to a stop. Final grain ground. The cottage dims. Juniper shadows on plaster like forest outlines. You set the clay charm on the mantel beside the pocket bell. The two objects, soundless, waiting, bookend the room's hush. Breath slows. A wisp of juniper smoke curves upward, brushes spiral beam, drifts through wattle crevice into sky where first star already peaks. The day's rhythm ends, not with a bell, but with deep quiet. It settles into joints and straw mattresses alike. Siblings yawn. Hound sighs. You stretch and feel shoulders unhook from tasks. Second sleep will come later, but first you savor stillness, anchoring it within your chest, heartbeat for heartbeat. Preparing for the wind down's tender tide, night presses its cool palm against the shutters while you knot the last eel net loop. Outside, frost forms a thin shell over puddles. Every 45 seconds, a faint ting reaches your ear as the surface cracks under its own slow tightening. That glassy ping becomes this hour's metronome, replacing the smith's daylight hammer. You bank the hearth to a single ribbon of flame. Ember light wavers over the lavender spiral on the beam. Charcoal still bold, now haloed by drifting juniper smoke. The little clay charm rests beside the iron pocket bell. Together, they look like silent sentries posted for the final watch. Red crusts lie in a wicker bowl, destined for tomorrow's pottage. Buttermilk jars cool on the sill. Condensation feathers the glass. You lift one, sip the tang, and feel fatigue slide from shoulders to soles, pooling there like melted snow. A sibling pads in with rush light to guide the hound outside. When the door opens, the frost shell pings again. Tink. Anchor notes. Their breath clouds in moonlight before the latch returns snug. You spoon rye pudding into a wooden cup. Thick now, flavors of honey and fermented grain mellowed. Mainstream historical fact is, many medieval households finished winter suppers with ale puddings, or bread sops, easy on grain stores and gentle on sleep. You savor each bite, warmth spreading outward from the chest. By the hearth, the new night watch candlestick glows inside its beeswax aura, silver stem throwing soft glints across the room. Reflection lands on the juniper bundles, making resin beads sparkle like dim stars. Your mind roams to tomorrow's cleansing of the iron carver ruins. Athelstan will chant psalms, the smith will hammer 3 bright strokes on a consecrated anvil, and Ostrich will count heads twice, once for bodies present, once for dreams kept safe. Historians still argue whether such rites were faith, theater, or early crowd control. Villagers rarely cared, so long as dawn arrived untroubled. Only one half-smile stirs your lips. The frost outside now mends quicker than it breaks, so the metronome pings softer, like distant harp strings. You wrap another juniper sprig with linen, planning to hang it inside the forge tomorrow, resin against restless iron. Some Lombard manuals claimed juniper smoke tempered steel edges. Whether true or not, the scent feels like armor for the lungs. You dismiss the scents and take advantage of the windows for the soundproofed metal. And returns, paws tapping curls by embers. You unlace boots, toes greeting rush mats still scented of summer fields. Blanket weights stitched with patch memory of last week's mending, small spirals hidden in the weave. You fold inside, straw mattress sighing welcome. Frost calls, tink a softer shard breaking. Lamp flame flutters in sympathy. Breathing slows, ribcage following, flames sway, eyelids gathering weight. Candlestick glow dims to peach. Cellar deep quiet yawns behind rafters. You trace the lavender spiral overhead with a half-raised finger, giving silent thanks for every anchor that guided this long night. Bell skips, creak gulps, hammer strikes, rooster calls, and now frost song. Each kept the narrative steady, each let Paraclete hush. Cup rinsed, embers banked, latch checked, coins melted, chisel locked, boy dreaming, tasks complete, story threads pulled snug. You let the lavender sachet cradle your cheek, tasting juniper in the air, and allow a second sleep to drift its veil. The fire drops to a single coal, breathing just enough light to brush the rafters. Shadows stretch, soften, then settle like quilts pulled over the room. Air grows slower, thicker. Every inhale a warm tide rolling in, every exhale sliding back across sand too smooth for footsteps. Outside, frost mends its thin silver glass. The next crack arrives later now. Tink, muted, gentle, as though night itself has started whispering. Between those faint notes, silence blooms, wide and velvety. You let it fill the space behind your eyes. Let it smooth the tiny creases thought leaves on the brow. Juniper threads the hush with pine-sweet traces, and lavender seeps up from the sachet in a steady, cool ribbon, winding through each breath. Muscles lengthen, loosen, float. Shoulders surrender their own weight. Spine softens grain by grain until back meets straw with perfect ease. Somewhere far off, the church's silver candlestick glows, its beeswax flame trimmed low, holding vigil so you don't have to. Coins lie melted into peaceful shape. Bells, large and small, rest quiet, their stories folded for another dusk. The boy sleeps, the forge cools, and even the river hushes under a veil of new ice. You feel the mattress cradle, knees, hips, ribs, every curve supported, anchored, safe. Thoughts slow to single words, warmth, hush, drift, and then those words untether, floating upward like winter moths dissolving into dark. Let the last ember fade, let the frost remake its glass without hurry. Let breath find its slowest rhythm, steady, steady, steady. Nothing asks, nothing urges. The night itself leans close and hums a wordless lullaby just beneath hearing. Sink into it, deeper, softer, until even that gentle hum drifts beyond reach.